thanks for joining us. I'm here today with our executive director, Coach Todd Berry, and it's definitely my pleasure. Coach, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mario.
Well, today I'm really excited because we're going to talk a little ball. It seems like it's been a while since we've had the chance to sit down and talk some X's and O's. And one of the things that a lot of people know about you is your innovation in offense, and definitely one of the pioneers. Run and shoot, the spread, power read, a bunch of stuff that you were doing very early on in your career. And one thing that hasn't quite emerged, start seeing a little bit of it here over the last few years, is the two quarterback system. Now, a lot of people might not know about the two quarterback system. It was very popular around 2012. I actually still get calls from people, as I'm sure you do, about that system. I just wanted to, before we start looking at some film, dive in and talk about how that came about. When did you decide you needed two quarterbacks on the football field?
Yeah, it is unique, obviously. And I actually came into a program as an offensive coordinator to where I had one pretty good running back, but my two next best runners were both quarterbacks. And so it was a way to try to kind of maximize my personnel to some degree. And so initially, this was 2004. It was really kind of built a little bit more about just being able to create the run game that I wanted. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of how we set it up, because as this grew and expanded, we needed more ways to be able to kind of communicate how we were going to do it. And so as we're watching the video today, we'll certainly have quite a few different looks, and so we don't have all of them up here. And so many of them I'm going to kind of draw up here on our screen for us. But it started off in 2004. It kind of blossomed actually whenever I moved to UNLV in basically 2007, because I had a right-handed quarterback and a left-handed quarterback, and all of a sudden that created a lot of different options for us in relation to the play action. And then, as you mentioned, you obviously worked with me during this time frame, and it continued to expand. So I think we ended up with about 60 different plays that were very, very easy for everyone to run, sometimes they ended up being more specialized plays, and then sometimes we really tended to kind of take a whole series and kind of base the series out of the two quarterbacks. And didn't mean they were always both involved either. And I think that's the other thing that we were able to do, was to make sure that sometimes that quarterback can be just a great decoy, that extra quarterback, and not be involved in the play to where you're really not exposing two quarterbacks to hits. And so I'm going to talk real quickly, if you don't mind, at this point in time about kind of how we set things up. And what we wanted to make sure that we could do initially was to take every one of our formations and be able to stick a quarterback into that formation in a different place. And so, for instance, this for us was leftover. This was the formation leftover. And we have both quarterbacks back here. You're going to see later on in some of these clips to where we're going to see the quarterback all over the place. And I think that's why it's important to kind of talk to it initially from this. Most of these clips today are going to be play actions, but to kind of start off with, again, both of our quarterbacks are here. And for us, this was the 3 location for our running back. And our quarterback's taking the place of the running back. This would be the 5 location, the 7 location, 9 location, and again, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And so for us, this would have been 3 left over, meaning that the back is going to be in the 3 location, and then we've got our formation. And that's going to become a little bit more significant as you see all of the different things that we use to try to disguise where the quarterback was going. As I kind of mentioned, this started off in the run game, and I think we were the first. I don't know of anybody else that did it back in 2004, to where we actually were kind of flipping the read. And so to kind of demonstrate a little bit, if we were basically running zone read, you would generally have your running back here, and it would be something that would look like this with the quarterback mesh point and then headed that direction. Now, we didn't want our quarterbacks exposed that much. And so consequently, what we decided that we wanted to do a little bit of is what we called flash and flow, and now it's called power read and all that. And I think we introduced this to some degree, and this is why it tied in real well with our play actions, was instead what we decided was we wanted to get the ball outside. Most of the teams that we played tend to have a little bit more talent up front than what we had, and so we needed to get the ball on the perimeter, but we needed to freeze people. We needed to create the eye candy, or the where's the ball type of mentality. And so what we did was we flipped the read. We put the back in the 3, which is now our quarterback basically, and ran him out. We were still reading that edge player, and then we dove this quarterback straight ahead, knowing that there was a better chance of getting outside, right? And so that power read concept, the zone flash concept, we started that in 04, and then that kind of led us to the play actions. And so this back location became really significant for us in relation to be able to move our quarterback. And then again, this thing blossoms into play actions and worms, screens, all these other kinds of things that were all basically a part of our system. And so I think this initial concept here was that we were basically working that flash concept here again, where that quarterback was here, but now we're going to run the play action with it. And we had lots of different things that we could do to where we were basically doing a runoff with a double spin. Sometimes we would create the 3-level or the flood concept by putting this guy in a trail. We could also do something to where all of a sudden we were running more of a smash concept, something along those lines. And these were all part of our kind of our base naked plays, the normal zone read, again, quarterback working outside and then running it. And then we just applied basically the two quarterbacks into it, but we were basing it off of a read. So again, on this play action concept, let's say that we had something like this, where you had the backside drag, that type of thing, and a runoff potentially by number 3. You can certainly do a lot of different things with this guy. But let's say we had this concept. So what you're going to see on these play actions is basically the quarterback reading this area, this edge. And in the process, if this guy would close, he would hand the ball off, or if we really kind of felt like the quarterback could get outside, he'd hand the ball off, and then this quarterback that's running this direction, obviously, that's on this rollout, would then work the play action. If for some reason this guy chased the quarterback out, let me clean this up just a little bit. If this edge player chased the quarterback out, then this quarterback would then keep the ball, and then knowing that we were in some kind of zone concept, we would have all of our gaps filled here, and then basically that quarterback would then have freedom just to be able to set in the pocket and then work again whatever that play action is, right? And so, and basically still tying in this other quarterback as far as flat control. And so it was a really unique way for us to be able to take base plays, add a quarterback into it. Probably the thing that was the most difficult, quite honestly, when it got to the play actions, was for our receivers to try to figure out, did this quarterback have the ball or did this quarterback have the ball, so they could find their eyes a little bit. And so I always kind of talked to the quarterback that was basically running out, is to make sure that he always was kind of somewhat showing ball so that the receivers could see that he had the ball in his hand, okay? And even if he didn't have the ball in his hand, is to make sure that he was coming out with his hands up but open so that they could see he didn't have the ball at that point in time, so they could focus their eyes back on the throw coming from that angle. And so if you want, we can go through this first clip and kind of talk about this first clip. Obviously, the edge player in this snap, he basically, he stays flat. And so for our quarterback, again, we're trying to get the ball to the edge. And this is actually a little bit of a switch concept down here at the bottom. We've got a right-handed quarterback. I think in this scenario here, we actually have the right-handed quarterback that is the one that's always going to sprint to the right. Our left-handed quarterback, who is our starter, will be the one that's sprinting to the left, and our quarterbacks would just flip based off of right or left. The normal play action concept, obviously, okay, with obviously the runoff, okay, the flat control in relation to this quarterback threatening, the drag coming back, okay, and then the set down. And obviously a pretty good play, very easy for us to run. Creates a little bit more things for the defense to have to talk about, which obviously means that they're spending maybe less time talking about some of your base snaps. And you can see right here, Mario, that if you'd stop it at this point, you can see what we kind of talk about. Even though we're trying to get the ball to the edge, if this quarterback kept the ball, you can see what kind of pocket he has here because of just the nature of what the line has done, how the edge player has run out. And so now all of a sudden I've got this really, really clean pocket. So even if he would have kept the ball, he then would have worked this whole system here in all likelihood, what we kind of found was he never had to work this system. This was enough to pull everybody out. And this drag became one of those things that was just wide open for him many times.
Absolutely. I think one of the interesting things, you kind of broke down the origins and then the system, is that I think some people might have saw this live on TV at times and thought this was a gimmick or a gadget type play.
Right.
But this was installed to be able to work at any point in time, just based off the system that was already in place. You know, how important is that component of being able to kind of have that system in place to, you know, be able to call these plays seamlessly and nobody has to scratch their head whenever you make a call.
Yeah, the only thing that we actually tied to some of these plays was the word cue. And that was the word cue basically told everybody, hey, we got 2 quarterbacks in, and so that ball might be coming from different locations. But other than that, it was the exact same system. There were no new play calls that we derived from either the formation or the play call. It were just base plays that we would normally run. This would have been a normal naked for us, normal play action. We just installed a different quarterback, created the read. The pressure comes more on the 2 quarterbacks, obviously. But the reality of it was actually fairly simple. There were some nuances, certainly, just like there is to anything. But to them, it was just like, I'm doing the exact same thing if I had a back in the game in terms of my read, right? I'm doing the exact same thing if, for whatever reason, I'm that quarterback that's flashing across, and I'm doing the exact same thing as if I was running our normal naked. There wasn't really anything new there. There was a few nuances that I would kind of talk to the quarterbacks about, and those are even minor to some degree in just relation to what I just mentioned about showing ball. You know, if you're that guy running out to kind of clear this thing up for the receivers about where the trajectory and the angle of the ball was going to be. I think this is obviously same formation. We flipped it. This would have been right over for us. And now the back is in the 2 location. Again, 2, 4, 6, 8. And when I say the back, I'm talking about our quarterback is playing the other back position. And again, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So this for us would have been 2 right over. And now I don't know exactly what the play action concept is. Again, you can kind of bring in whatever you decide that you want in relation to your naked concepts. But now we have the left-handed quarterback because obviously he's going to be better sprinting to the left. Basically, the quarterbacks are traded now, positions. And so our starter now is in the 2 location. He's the one playing running back because he knows that he's going to be the flasher and sprinting to the left. Our right-handed quarterback now is going to be the one staying in the pocket. Once again, kind of an interesting runoff here in relation to our quarterbacks kind of, again, reading the edge. We got a different concept this time in the sense that you got basically the comeback and the flag. Here's my flag control that can allow the quarterback a quick throw down and then the drag on the backside. As we look at this, though, obviously we've got a very clean target out here, okay, a clean throw. But I also want to, as we're kind of looking through this, I think one of the really interesting things about it is, once again, let's think in terms of if the quarterback doesn't hand this ball off. I want you to look at the pocket this quarterback has here because it's a pretty open, clean look that he could also, obviously, if he wanted to hand or if he wanted to keep this ball, he could keep it, okay, make the throw, or even if this guy decided to reroute, he could then dump it to this guy. And again, we're going to look at play actions today, but we had screens and all different kinds of things where we could do a double pass to this quarterback, a screen, that type of thing. So that was something else that always had to, teams had to worry about.
As I was going through this clip, one of the interesting things that I found, and you mentioned earlier, was how this read was just slightly different than if you were looking to hand the ball off to the back or the quarterback truly keep it to run. So talk about this read right here that number 14 is making on this defensive end, how this might differ,
Sure.
if you have two quarterbacks.
Most of the time when you see this type of thing, obviously this guy's slow reading, you'll see a closure, if we can freeze it there. You'll see a closure from the edge or the guy coming upfield. We kind of recognize many times that when we had the two quarterbacks and because of people not knowing whether it was going to be a run or a pass, that we would get this really, really flat-footed guy. And so what I had to start talking to our quarterbacks about was saying, hey, listen, especially on the play actions, if this would have been a run, I probably would have told the quarterback I would prefer to see you keep this. And that way we're not trying to have to outrun this edge player that's already flat. But with this being a play action, with this quarterback basically being a left-handed quarterback, which means he could always gain some ground just a little bit because he's not having to try to get his shoulder square, is, hey, can we beat this guy outside so that we can make the throw? Now, again, one of those nuances is this quarterback that's taking the snap, he's the one that's making the decision on the edge. This quarterback that's making this decision, he's also kind of pre-snapped out here, Mario. He's looked at the coverage to say, hey, listen, do we have a good route versus this coverage? And that comes in the pre-snap, as every quarterback would do, is saying, hey, do I have a good look to this side? And at that point in time, then I can say yes or no. If I say yes, I've got a good look, then that's going to influence a little bit about how I treat this guy. In this case here, he says, hey, I've got a good pre-snap. And so now I just need to see what this guy does. And the only thing that's going to keep me from doing that is if this guy runs up the field, basically. And at that point in time, then I've either got a clean pocket or, as you know, for us, the idea of a pass doesn't have to be a pass, right? There's an opportunity to throw the ball. Doesn't mean you have to. There is a really good scramble possibility here also. But I do think it's kind of curious, again, once you see, and the drag is going to be kind of eliminated here. We saw it from the wide. We don't need to go back to it. But this idea of the drag route being open. And one more snap here, if you don't mind, to this. I think one of the interesting things that our quarterback does here is most of the time they would sit in the pocket and act like they were going to throw the football. Okay? Now, what he's trying to do is he's trying to draw this guy further back inside, which I love. Because I gave them some opportunities to basically say, hey, if we're going to try to influence this guy, and you know that it's a handoff, are you going to influence him more if he's eyeballing you from sitting in the pocket? Or do you want to continue like you maybe are running the football to try to drive him back in to allow the other quarterback to get outside? Watch what this quarterback does. He doesn't sit in the pocket this time. You're going to see him take off and start running like he has the ball to try to help free up this guy to bring him back down in because he sees this guy's got his eyes on him. Once again, one of the little nuances of, kind of coaching quarterbacks, right, is as they grow up in the system. Okay, different formation this time. And so if I'm breaking this film down as a defensive coach, where is the other quarterback? Yeah, and that's what we always wanted to do, was to be able to say, find the guy. Right? You know, there's two quarterbacks in the game, but you still have to be able to find them and identify them because we didn't want people playing matchups with us. And so at this point in time, we're going to use this call, which we basically said mix. And mix allowed basically all of the eligible receivers, these guys, basically, to be able to move, to line up wherever they wanted to. And then our quarterback that's in the pocket at this point in time would then basically clap, and then everyone would then run to the formation called. So this is mix something. I couldn't tell you what it is. And now we can. All right, so basically, if you can freeze it there, this would have been mix. Our quarterback is in the back position or playing the back at this point in time. So this would be the 3 again, 3, 5, 7, and 9. That would have been the locations to start off with. So this would have been 3 left trips for us. These guys know mixed left trips. Obviously, our quarterbacks know where the back would have been located in those locations. And so it's really easy for us to be able to move the quarterback around. Nobody else really cared. We said mix 3 left trips. They do that on a normal situation, but we just happen to have 2 quarterbacks in the game at this point in time. All right, so, and based off kind of that right-left concept, again, and I might have been wrong here. The quarterback moved over, didn't he? I apologize. Can you run that back just a little bit, Mario, during the mix? Yeah, they sure did. All right, so we got the quarterback here. We end up with 2 because our left-handed quarterback moved to this location because he was sprinting to the left. And that was just, again, that ability to be able to have a right-handed, left-handed quarterback that was great for us. So this has been mixed 2 left trips. All right, again, one of play action. And as we can see, this edge player is going to close hard. That's a good hand for us. Now the quarterback basically goes through his normal progression reads. Okay, and he's going to see, obviously, the flat defender expanding, the linebacker being second contain. And then, obviously, you've got the drive off with this route. And so just a nice little dump down. This was, I think, a 3rd down and 3 call, maybe a 2nd and 3 call. Nice little hole, nice little window. And as I always kind of had fun with a little bit kind of going through this, and I think it's really important as you look at these different things that you can do within these packages with the quarterback, is kind of, freeze it at that point in time. Obviously, we already know what this thing looks like, but what if he would have kept it? What would have happened to the drag? Okay, what would have happened with any kind of the run parts of it? Because that's how we basically found other ways to do things, was basically to look at the what ifs. All right, so just nice little cheap dump down. We were a fast-paced team. This was 2012, I believe. You'll see both quarterbacks. Look at them. They both jumping, looking at the sideline, going, "Okay, are we going fast? Am I still in the game as another quarterback? Are we going to stay in the system?" I mentioned earlier that a lot of times what we do is we would take basically a whole series of this and try to focus the whole series down the field during a ball game.
So this is the next play.
Next play, yeah. And a different formation at this point in time. Now we've got the other quarterback. Now he's in the extra quarterback's in the 3 location. Now this for us was right Trey Yo. And so we've got our tight end now tucked back in. And so now we've got a whole different concept in relation to being able to run power and some of those other kinds of plays that we could run that we could have out of other formations that, again, we didn't really care with these quarterbacks. You'll see, I think, a little bit later on in the clips, I think we did include a few runs in this. All right, so this has been 3 right Trey Yo for us formationally. Another play action. And obviously the right-handed quarterback's the one that's sprinting to the right. Now you might think in terms of, and this for us was basically a protected naked. This was the 400 series for us. And so he was basically going to block the edge. The quarterback, even kind of going into this, knew that there was a high probability that I'm going to be able to hand this ball off. Now he's still kind of reading this edge area, and you're going to see a scrape, and I just saw it kind of flash. It might have been this guy twisting out. It was. And so they have actually a slant on. Point being is he's kind of reading this area, and he's not feeling great, obviously, about this angle that this guy's taken. He hands it off, and now we basically have a 2-man route here, and I think this was for what was going to be China with the corner and that, and then the drag. And so this quarterback is then operating the play.
Now you mentioned that Trey Yo, that tight end that's off the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that Yo position, and how this is different than the neckers that we've seen. This is we're looking for that tight end to pin. Is he looking to pin that guy?
And that was a term that we used. Many people will talk about nakeds being kind of leaving an edge player free, right, or in a bootleg where you're actually kind of blocking that player that's the edge player. And so many people would call this as a bootleg. It could be the old waggle term to where you're trying to pull a lineman out there. We called it pin, to where we were basically taking a receiver, a tight end, and basically trying to secure the edge to some degree.
With the quarterback, let's say this wasn't even a 2 quarterback system. Where's that launch point ideally on your 400 series where you do have that pin mentality?
No, we always want to try to threaten the edge as much as possible, because I do think it's important to move the pocket. And play action has become this great way of creating a moving pocket, but it also that idea, and I mentioned earlier that term eye candy, which I love to use. And where is the ball? Who's got the ball? Where's it coming from? All that. The launch point's all going to be dependent upon the depth and route of the play. And we traditionally tried to have something relatively quick for the quarterback to throw down to on our nakeds. Yeah, so we wouldn't really have run this concept with a naked mentality, because it wouldn't have been a fast dump down for the quarterback. But when we were protected, a boot pin scheme, then that should allow you a little bit more time to stretch this. Now, I mean, obviously, if he would have got him pinned, okay, to where he was inside the edge, I would love to see our quarterback continue to threaten, right? This is the best time in the world, Mario, for the quarterback to be able to use his eyes too, because his eyes become visible to everyone on the field. And so the more that he's basically stretching this, the more that he can utilize his eyes to manipulate the coverage based off of whatever they're wanting to cover. We're going to try to reinforce that with our eyes to be able to work a more open route. And so if we would have been able to pin this guy, I would have loved seeing the quarterback continue to stretch out and really use his head and eyes at this point in time, maybe even looking back at the drag to try to influence things as long as he's clean coming out.
So really good job by Cody. However, seeing that he doesn't have that edge pin,
Right.
set his feet up, delivering a heavy ball there.
Yeah, I really like this. This is Cody Wells. He's now actually coaching at Jacksonville State. But for instance, you'll see Cody here. One of the things that I really like about this is again, you'll see we worked hard on our feet, but you'll basically see him bring his feet together to make the launch, and then watch him clean his target. Did you see him just kind of slide up? Okay, with his back, he's cleaning up the throw. And the throw doesn't necessarily mean just cleaning up the throw here. It's cleaning up the angle to the receiver, right? And so he's cleaning the angle, which is all the quarterbacks that I ever coached will kind of talk all these buzzwords that really are kind of ingrained in their psyche, I think, in their thought process. Because I didn't want to have to, I created a lot of different buzzwords for my quarterback to make sure that we were, I could say something real fast and they could register it right now rather than having to go through this long dissertation. You don't have time for that with quarterbacks. All right, a little different formation this time. Still got the trips. This is trio. We basically moved him up instead of this guy up. And obviously our extra quarterback here is in the 2 location. And so we're going to do something along those lines, I'm assuming, with this play. Doesn't mean we have to, because as you'll see, I think later on, we can kind of manipulate some different things with this. Oh, nice clean handoff. I mean, this one's obviously a very, very easy read. Edge player comes down, easy read for this quarterback, whether it be run or pass or whatever. We got a nice clean thing that happens here. I think you can see this quarterback really do a really good job of what I talk about showing ball. And the other thing that I love about this snap, I just now noticed that, watch this quarterback. And this is the lefty now, because we're sprinting left. Look, did you see his head and eyes look back inside? When I talked about reinforcing people's decision, there's our flat control defender, right? And that guy's really wanting to hang inside. And so basically, he's going to shoot his head and eyes back in here to help hold and account for him back inside so that he creates more of the one-on-one, more space for this guy. It might not influence this guy as much, even though he is drifting back inside. But what it does is anytime that we can create a one-on-one, we win, right? And the more space that we have, if he would have looked out here all the time, even though that was probably going to end up being the throw based off this guy was not ready for the break. His eyes, if he was focused here, more than likely he would end up there, and we're minimizing our opportunities for a big play. And so I love this look that he's given back inside right here with his head and eyes. And again, I think anytime that you're any kind of sprint out for your quarterback, this is where head and eyes are always important, but it's significantly important when you're on the move as a quarterback. Watch the other quarterback gets blown up here a little bit. But this is kind of one of the things that he's feeling this guy, and he's wanting to hold him back inside. And he does a pretty good job of that instead of just staying in the pocket. All of a sudden, he kind of extends. You'll see the guy turn his not flip until he sees that late.
Which allows for Colton 15 to get on the outside and do all those great things you're talking about with the
correct,
right?
Yeah, because he's holding him. Okay. So I give those quarterbacks the option, whichever way they felt like would influence this edge more, about whether to stay in the pocket or run.
Right.
Okay, now we started off with the back in the 2 location. This is again 2-right trio for us. Quarterback moves him over because now we've got the righty going to the right. And so we could have called this 2-right trio, and the quarterbacks just know that basically on the play call, we've got to have the right-handed guy running to the right. Again, the edge player closes. So this is a give for the quarterback. And then once again, we've got the play action. Now, instead of the old double slam, double flat, we've basically created the trail, as I mentioned, with more of the flood concept. Really nice job, again, by the quarterback, kind of working out. Nice and easy. One of the interesting things, again, as we kind of look at things, is kind of looking at what the other quarterback is doing, seeing what the drag route is, as you well know, Mario, because we did have that capability of doing this. And as a special play, you have the ability to run the throwback screen to this other quarterback, right? Hand it to him, let him run out, and then basically the old throwback slow screen to the tight end, the running back. A lot of people had that in their system. We did too. And so you'll see this quarterback at this point in time drifting out, okay, just to show like we might be wanting to run the backside screen, see if they covered it, or even to draw their attention to the side, because we've obviously already got our linemen zoning that direction, which then makes that screen even a little easier to hide.
Now, real quick before we focus on the film again here, you see number 15 pop in, you see number 12, you see number 14. And each one of these are from different years, obviously. And you have, each year, each situation is the number one quarterback, it's the number two quarterback. And you're talking about snaps occurring in the first, second, third, obviously we're in this in the fourth quarter as well. What was the importance of basically getting both quarterbacks involved early in the game and having them engaged? Like, well, I know there were some reasons behind that.
Yeah, there was.
Well.
I think that you generally have a normal rotation with everybody on your field except for generally your backup quarterback. And as you know, most of our offenses tend to be very quarterback driven. I mentioned when we started this video about the idea that I initially started this because my two quarterbacks were two of my best runners. Obviously, as the seasons progressed, that changed. But you're right in the idea that my idea or concept of this never really changed in trying to give my backup quarterback meaningful exposures at meaningful times in the game. I like the idea of putting them in those pressure situations to see what their exposure is going to be like and to see how they adjust to it. And so this was another way for us to play quarterbacks. Now, right now we're seeing basically, because these are all the play actions, all the snaps that they were involved in. But as you well know, Mario, there was lots of snaps where we'd have two quarterbacks out there, and that other quarterback becomes a flat control guy in the passing game. He becomes a runoff guy in the passing game to where he's really not going to get hit, but he's a part of the game at that point in time still, too, because people have to account for him, partly because of this. They don't know at any point in time if that quarterback's going to end up being a part of the actual play itself.
One of the interesting things, I think we all have our different experiences at all the different places that we coach. A lot of times your second string quarterback comes in and there's a drop off regardless of, if you want to admit to it or not, there's some drop off. And one of the things that I noticed in each of these seasons, I think 15 was our starter, but those other guys had to come in. There wasn't a significant drop off because game 4 of that season, they've had significant snaps early in games. They're engaged in the game plan. They're not, they're not ever on the sideline jacking around because they're involved in practice. They're involved in the games. And so I just hats off to this philosophy of getting those guys engaged. So.
Yeah, I think it's important too. And I can go back a little bit further. I mentioned earlier that I was at UNLV at one point in time. We had 2 freshman quarterbacks at one point in time. One guy comes in and he throws like 167 passes without an interception. NCAA record for a freshman, consecutive passes. He gets hurt. I've got the other freshman who ended up being the lefty quarterback that had been playing a lot in the 2 quarterback system throughout the game. He comes back in and then breaks that other freshman's record and goes 174 snaps, I believe it was, without an interception. And so you got 2 basically guys, but both of them, even though they were freshmen, they were all playing significant reps early on. And the quarterback position, it's not just about skill level and development. There's an emotional, psychological part to it that's really significant. I appreciate you saying that because I agree. I think our backup quarterbacks over a long period of time there wasn't a huge drop-off, even though we had some fairly talented starters.
All right, so in these last few clips, and even at Las Vegas, UNLV weren't able to see those clips at this moment. You were fortunate enough to have a righty and a lefty, which makes a ton of sense. It's awesome. All right, you get guys running to their arm. All right, so this is a few years later, and now you got 2 righties. Once again, these guys are both coaching too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, both of them are coaching, yeah.
It says a lot about what was going on in that quarterback room. But now you got 2 righties. So I just want to kind of throw a different clip on here and let you talk about that right-handed guy sprinting out to his left, maybe some of the mechanics that you talked about, because I know that does change. It does change even how you want to call it as a coach.
Yeah, and I think that this is, if we'll freeze it right here, once again, where's the other quarterback? And that's always the thing that I think everyone always has to kind of identify. One of the beauties of the system is our other quarterback is up here. That would be the 8 location for us. So this is that same left trio formation that we've seen here recently. And so this would be 8 left trio for us, putting the normal back, if you would, in that location. So there are time frames when you have one quarterback that is a little bit more athletic, for instance, and might throw better to the left. In this case here, this young man here, like you said, both of them are coaching now. I'm proud of both these guys, but he was much more of a pocket passer, very pure, and this individual was much more of the kind of run around, scramble type of player. And so in this season, basically, he was always in the pocket, okay? And because this guy was more of my scramble around guy, he was always the guy that was outside. And so, like you mentioned, we didn't have a righty and lefty. And so consequently, we had to kind of work this in opposite direction with the thought process of what are these two young people best at? And that's how we did it. And so I think this is, again, I think this is another play action, if I recall. Again, we're focused more on the play actions rather than some of the other things. And if you could run that back, because this one's a little bit unique too, right? You can see this at this point in time. Normally, we would leave this guy free, okay? But if I recall, I believe this is Myles Garrett, okay, the #1 draft pick. And we decided that week we didn't want to necessarily leave him free, all right? And so as long as there wasn't pressure in the gap, we asked our tackles to reach out during that thing to try to help protect the quarterback, because we still, it's not just about influencing this edge player. It's about really all the rest of these people on the field having to cover their space. And so, just because all of a sudden we weren't necessarily reading the edge so much, and we still are here. We're still asking that quarterback to kind of get around. We still want to impact. I love these snaps because I think as you look at these snaps, look at where all the defensive players are. All right? And I want you to look at all of the windows. I mean, at this point in time, you see the defensive line all going this way. The linebackers are coming. They're not sure if it's run, and so they're all coming up. I want you to look at the drag route, right? I mean, look at the secondary and how far off they're playing, because they're still trying to figure out where the ball is too. And I thought it was always one of the beauties. I wasn't at a lot of places where we had the best team out on the field in terms of athletes, and so you had to find ways to scheme. And this was one of the ways. If you put people in space, you give them a chance, where the talent doesn't override the ability to be able to make a play. All right, once again, nice, very, very clean look. And just, again, watching everybody kind of run around here a little bit. That was Myles Garrett, wasn't it?
One of the things I mentioned was this right-hand quarterback being able to sprint out to the left. And I just fell in love with the way he flipped his hips here. If you want to talk a little bit about, some of those things you coach those guys on.
Yeah, there's time periods whenever we want to kind of run and follow our ball and get our shoulders. And I've really never talked about getting your shoulders square to your target. I always kind of basically talk more about, turning your toes towards your target, trying to throw the ball to where you're following your ball, and you can get on that path, because then you're going to decrease that natural physics in relation to the ball going sideways on you on a sprint out, if you can follow it. But there's time periods whenever you can. And this point here where this quarterback basically is going to get froze up because of what ends up happening here with the extent this guy does. And so what he does basically is he's just going to plant his left foot, and he's going to try to flip that right foot back around. So I'm going to flip that back foot right around it, almost a hopping type of formation, to try to slow down the motion and then get through. Now, you're still going to see a little bit of a fall off here. I think it tended to be more because he didn't want to get hit by that big rascal than it is basically the natural. His motion could be a little cleaner, but I could see why it was influenced a little bit.
And so you talked about this drag quite a bit here. And you, early on when you were talking about some of the system setups, you mentioned warm. And I know that was very, very unique to us. And maybe some people in the conference might have caught an inkling whenever those quarterbacks rubbed those hands together, something bad was coming their way. But could you talk a little bit about what the warm is, and then we can dive into this play?
Sure. Yeah, once again, this is that right Trey Yo formation again. And the other quarterback is playing the back position, and so he's here. And so this would be 3 right Trey Yo, just to set that up. As certainly, we've seen some pretty clean looks here, but we also recognize that their defense is going to have some responses to this. And you can see, well, with this other quarterback here, with some of the things that we've done, well, we could run our whole system out of it. If that quarterback's going there, defensively, I might want to overload, right? And so we have the same call here. We have a play action call. And all of a sudden, it looks like they're going to bring pressure here to stop this, to keep this quarterback basically in the pocket, right? And so what our quarterback does is, and this was kind of our normal system, as you well know, this guy's on a drag, right? You're going to see this quarterback, and we would do this on non-passing plays too, in terms of this action. But basically what he's going to do is he's going to warm this, basically saying, hey, listen, I want you to get ready for a big, a fast ball here. I'm not going to hand this ball off because I'm seeing all the pressure. And so I'm going to keep this ball, and this drag route, I want you to kind of turn it into a slant. And so he's basically a pressure drag, and that's kind of what we called it, to where I'm inside, I'm just going to push him vertical a second, and then I'm going to go. And so it's kind of it's more of a, not a slant concept, it's a pressure drag. What you're going to see, I think, the quarterback in this snap, he's going to look down to that receiver. He's going to warm it. He doesn't like the pressure, and he's going to throw basically what a lot of people would consider to be a slant. There's the hand warm, alerting him. Yeah, boom. Nice job. Obviously, we were getting the pressure from the side. Didn't change the play, didn't have to check out of the play. We all hate that moment to where all of a sudden, the defense, baits you into something, makes it look like something, and then doesn't. Obviously, if all these guys could have backed out, this guy was still running the drag. These guys are still running their routes. We could have just run the play, right? If the quarterback looked up there and said it. So we're not having to check out of the play. What the warms allow you to do is to take advantage of where the defense is not, right? Here's all my grass. Take advantage of it, but still be able to keep the play on so the defense isn't baiting you into checking into something, checking out of a good play.
Right. One of the things I fall in love with, whenever we were working on this in practice and watching this after games, was the horizontal stretch that, these plays created. And, obviously bringing pressure, that's a great answer, right? Bringing the pressure off the front side, but your mic has to rotate over. And so I just think that's so beautiful how you got this guy rotating over, just further increasing this big old window for this pressure drag.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, as you well know, Mario, and this was the right thing to do. Okay, great idea. Okay, based off of kind of what this guy ends up doing and pulling out, right? But as you know, they had the tendency sometimes to try to bring against this 3 guys off the edge, right? One to come tight in case it was a handoff, one to take the quarterback, one to take the other quarterback. And then this guy was generally a little bit lower in the playing man coverage. But you also know, again, that we could have warmed this side. And if we'd have warmed that side, let me get rid of all my lines. If we'd have warmed that side because this guy was basically on this same area, he would have done this, and this would have been a pretty good throw. I like this too, right? In the sense that this guy, he has no idea what's going on back here. He's running out to try to chase the ball because of the disguise. So a lot of fun things with this. Yeah, and we've got our lefty quarterback who is our starter, the righty quarterback that is obviously in the 3 location. 3 right, Trey Yo. This play was going to be that pin play that we talked about earlier initially. All right, he's going to try to reach out and pin the edge.
All right, and then you alluded to this earlier as well too. The fact that just because you had that quarterback in didn't necessarily mean it was going to be a boot or a call out or any of that kind of stuff. Sometimes you just put them out there to be that eye candy or that decoy. So I grabbed a couple of the clips to let the coaches that are watching this kind of see some of the different things that you did. And right now, I think we have them sitting up top in the
in the 8 location.
In the 8 location.
Again, I appreciate you saying that because I didn't know. So this would have been right deuce for us, the formation, and obviously the other quarterback here, he's in the 8 location all the way out. And so and again, as you saw many snaps, we saw a lot with the backs being on these sides, which I think makes it easier too. But we could certainly bring that guy back in from that area too, and still run all these different plays. And we had the 2x2 nakeds and some of those kind of things. But there are time frames when you go, if I'm the quarterback here too, we always talk about quarterbacks about finding the grass. Where's the grass? I'm not exactly sure. And you'll see this guy, I would hope anyway, that this quarterback is going to attack that area because we got a significant amount of grass. Matter of fact, that tight end acted like he thought he was going to get the ball as in an uncovered position. But as you suggested, in this case here, Oklahoma, good football team. I think this is early in the game. So we take the quarterback, see how they want to respond to 2-quarterback system, basically, and just use them as a runoff. So this is kind of the standard stick, all right, play.
And one of the things I love too is I can't remember this roster for Oklahoma at the point in time right now, but I'm assuming this guy was a 4 or 5 star guy that had the opportunity to play at the next level. He's covering our second string quarterback right now, rather than covering our all conference.
That's true. I think this was Braley, so we had 2 Oklahoma guys probably, right?
That's right.
Braley wasn't the 5-star thing, was he? No, right. I mean, but Braley was a great quarterback and a great player for us. But there is certainly, as you're mentioning, some significant talent out here on the field. And this is taking one of their better athletes and better players, and he's guarding a guy that's basically a decoy. But again, because of all the different things we could do with these guys, that guy might not end up being the decoy, and so he's got to cover him, regardless of what kind of athleticism he has. If Braley watches this, he'll love that. He'll love that part.
I'll make sure he checks it. All right. Once again, now just showing the different ways we can use these 2 quarterbacks here. We got 3 left trio. We're back.
Okay, yeah. So he's. I like how the backup quarterback basically places the number 1 quarterback in the position on this snap, right? They did kind of work together sometimes. Right. Obviously, this guy's trying to call out the plays. Whoever's going to be, the starter basically always called this, even if he was moving over to the other location, as long as they were both in the backfield. Just a little bit, easier to do that type of thing. I think this might be another one of those, again, 3 left trio is the formation. And this might be kind of the fake screen, if I recall. We would run him on a screen. We'd also throw the double pass off of it, throw it to the other quarterback. Again, we had the abilities to do a lot of different things out of this that were just base offensive things. But I think this might end up being kind of the read power, if I remember correctly. That sure was. Yeah. And so basically he can choose to throw it out here, run the screen to this quarterback, okay, based again off the edge player, and I'm sure this was, we like this down the red zone. We like it on down and distances to where, and so we're just basically reading him.
Yeah. Just a unique way to run power read. I've seen a few teams kind of go this route with doing it rather than.
Well, instead of having to run him across and read him, basically we're going to read him with the get-go to see if that guy chases out, because we know we've already got numbers to the side, right? And
we put it on film more than enough times that this guy is a legitimate threat. I want to say we tossed it to him maybe a couple of plays before this, if I'm not mistaken.
We probably, I think this whole series, if I recall, that's been a little while ago. I like how the quarterback, down and distance sometimes will influence the quarterbacks too, in relation to saying, you know how big I am on converting 3rd downs, right? And not on 3rd down, just give me another 1st down, and then we'll freewheel after that. And so consequently, there was many times where you'd see a play to go, well, he could have thrown it, maybe he had bigger yardage. But the reality of it is, if my quarterback had a chance, if this would have been 3rd and 3, I would have said, hey, if you can give me 3 running it, give me the 3 running it. I'll take that right now. We'll look for the explosion plays on other downs, okay? But, find me the 1st down. It always used to drive me crazy when I see a 3rd and 5 and see a vertical being thrown, and I'm like, there's a wide open guy out here. Right. And my quarterbacks were, they understood how important 3rd down was to us as coaches.
Absolutely. And even with that stretch, you still able to pull that Mike Backer out of there.
Again, I go back and look at these clips, because obviously there's some other clips that are setting some of these plays up, but you just look at people's reactions on defense, and there's so many other things that we were kind of capable of doing within our system that weren't really, again, hard place for us to get into. It was, we could have run, as we kind of joked that one day we came off the field, we were kind of focused on all our quarterback plays. It was a Sunday practice, and we'd gone through a bunch of different ones that we'd never run before. And we just started calling them all out and just see how and everybody executed them perfectly. And because, again, it wasn't a break in the system. Nobody really cared. It was just, we were down a couple of running backs at that point in time, and so we just allowed the quarterbacks to get more snaps in that Sunday practice. And this thing transitioned for us, too, just because, again, you've got, once again, you got 2 quarterbacks in. Okay, so this has been 8 left Trey Yo. Yep, 8 left Trey Yo. He comes across. Guy goes outside, obviously. an easy run in for a touchdown. I talked about earlier about, we saw against Oklahoma the runoff. Now we're going to talk about the flat control, but we kind of did a little bit different with the flat controls to where instead of just standing here or running the hitch, we recognized that this quarterback had the ability to be able to do other things. And so we'd always backpedal that quarterback out as the flat control for this side. If he was the flat control, instead of running the normal hitch, which I think was what he would have normally done on the play if he'd been a receiver, we would back him up to where this would be a throwback so that there would be the opportunity for another throw. And so if I recall this play, I think he's going to basically run the flag. He's basically going to cross hash. He's going to be seam, and he's going to be drag. And so this quarterback could basically read this out. If he liked it, we liked this play down in the red zone. We liked it on these kind of down distance here because I didn't really had great calls on 3rd and 15. This one gave you a lot of different kind of verticals. Obviously the empty set, but again, this quarterback's going to operate the whole thing. If for some reason he likes one of the throws, he can take it. If he doesn't, he can basically throw it out to him. Kind of crazy, but as you and I both know, we've seen this work. Then this guy can then do it, right? Because it's going to end up being a lateral. Then he can work this whole system here. And then if he did throw it out here, then you'd see the quarterback wheel backside. And so, again, this was a base play for us, nothing designed. It was just the fact that all of a sudden, because this was a quarterback, instead of running the normal hitch that we would have run on that snap, we end up doing that.
And even myself, being a wide receiver coach at this point in time, even if that ball goes out to that second quarterback, as you mentioned, this is nothing new. It's just a scramble drill. It's the quarterback just scramble out to the right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. All of a sudden, the ball, it does get a little bit more difficult, as you know, on the receiver sometimes to try to find the ball. And he is actually going to throw it out there. Oh, no, he's going to drop this one.
This is why I'm going to make sure Bradley watches this. I know he wants this one back.
Well, yeah, if you look at all the space that he's got, obviously he's got all the way to here to pressure this line. And he's probably thinking that. And when I say pressure, I'm not thinking he's going to run for it.
Right.
Okay, I'm thinking that he's basically, we talk about pressing the line. We want to catch this ball, and we want to run forward, right? I'm sorry, I ended up getting the pass line. I want to run forward. I want to bring the defense to me because, as you mentioned, the best play in football is always a scramble drill, right? That is the best play if your people know where you're going. And it gives you the best opportunity to convert on this down and distance. Because it would have been interesting if he'd caught this and taken off if we would have got some of this, right? And obviously nobody out there with him. And I think one of the other things too, Mario, is we're looking at this, if you can run that back too. So many times we've put in these clips here, we've taken the back out and substituted quarterback. But as you well know, it didn't have to be the back, right? We could have left the back in the game, back here in the backfield, and put the extra quarterback at one of the receiver positions and taken him out. So these are all just basically back specific to where the quarterback's taking the back rather than some of the other receiver positions. So, and again, we'd still just kind of call the formation, the play, and nothing would have changed for anybody. Yeah, that would have got interesting if we'd made that catch right there. This is, I think, first ball game, right?
Yeah.
Because I noticed we were in camouflage, so this would have been against Wake Forest.
You're correct.
Yeah. We did win the game, though.
We did win the game.
Yeah.
Found a way to pull it out. Well, Coach, that's the end of the cut-ups. It's always a great opportunity for me just to dig into your brain a little bit and see how some of this stuff came to fruition. I know our coaches enjoy it, and we sure appreciate the time and look forward to doing this again.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Coach.